Hello, everyone. Welcome to Doctors and Coaches Corner podcast. This is our first podcast of October, and we're entering the fall, so really excited about that. And today's topic is addressing trauma in youth with CynDee Zandes. Dr. CynDee Zandes.
I see that you are not falling with your Hawaii background,
I
right?
just noticed that.
But that's totally okay because if you were in Hawaii, fall with doesn't really count. It's kind of the same season all year long, and that
Oh
on
yeah.
many levels would make me very happy. So anyway, so hi Robert, and welcome to
Hi.
everybody who is checking in. Um, you know, when I think about it, right? Um, I think that kids face a lot more trauma in the last 10, 15 years than they did previously. And maybe it's that it's more apparent, right? You get to hear more about it. More studies are being done. You're constantly asking kids, "Are you okay? Is it right?" So I don't know that has anything to do with it. It's just that I think we become far more aware of it. Maybe in the past we just said suck it up, right? And get over it rather than really trying to address it. And so hopefully what we're doing is going to do some good, right? Because trauma, you know, there are many traumas, some of them minor for sure, right? But if somebody could hurt my feelings and that can be traumatic, but I can also be neglected, and that's a much bigger trauma for me, right? Or if something happens in my purview, right, that I was able to see or witness, and maybe it affected me indirectly or directly. I just think that there's a lot more trauma for kids, and I think we hear about it a lot more than ever before. So I think that it's good that we have this conversation because one of the best things about people who work with kids, once you've built that trusting relationship with them and they know they can count on you, they can tell you things that are bothering them and so forth, then I think we get to hear more. And when we hear more, we can do something about it, right? We can try and make that easier. Whereas if the child doesn't trust you, they tell you nothing, right? And so they are holding that. And I remember as a principal, we had a family of children who were taken in by their aunt and uncle, but they had certainly had trauma in their lives. And out of the four, one of them was an exploder, right? Anything, I mean, the least little thing she would go, right? The other one was an imploder. So anything bad that happened, she blamed herself. She went into a funk, right? And so forth. And so then the two youngest ones, who the two older ones had sheltered from a lot of the chaos in their lives, were one was more emotional than the other, but didn't really explode or implode. And the other one was more stoic, right? Well, this is just the way it is. So it's interesting how, when I think about trauma, those four kids who experienced trauma, the oldest two, which took the brunt of it, right, developed coping mechanisms as an exploder or an imploder. And the two younger ones did it as being more emotional, being willing to cry, but not lash out or to just be stoic about it. So I don't know if you've had any experience with people or young kids or kids who've had trauma, but I'd be curious to know what you have to say.
Yes, definitely. So, when I was working at the after school program, at expanded learning program, we did have an explorer kid. So we dealt. He would deal with one of the counselors that was staying after school. But you could tell like he had trauma, and you could tell that's the reason why he would lash out. And so we just tried our best to, we tried our best to just be patient with him and try to understand him, because those are the kids that basically need more attention and more work done on them.
Right. Well, and to just learn to take a breath, right? And
Yes.
go is important. I know we
Mhm.
were observing not too long ago um, at a program. I was observing, and I was with their site coordinator, and they were a group of, they were probably fifth graders, were coming back in from the field, right? And they're in pretty organized fashion because they just played a game. But one of them was walking by the team leader and going, "It's not fair, it's not fair." And it was obviously just so upset about everything that had gone on. And so they got to the door, he let the class in and he kept this child out and he talked to him. And in essence, what he said to him is, I can tell that you're really, really upset. Do you remember how we have a calm down routine for you so that we can actually talk about it and figure out what we could do next? And the kid said yes, that he did. And he said, well, can you practice that calm down routine now? And so the boy did, but it took him about 10 minutes, right, to ease himself down so that he could have a conversation without, right? And I thought how great that they had developed together and had also worked with the school day on this calm down protocol and had taught it to the child one step at a time to teach him how to take a breath because he just couldn't. And you could see him physically relaxing and going, and then it would be less than that. It would be, and then pretty soon it was just right. And it had gone. So I do know that there are things that we can do to support kids. Trauma is real. Sometimes I think we think they're being dramatic, and
Right.
I don't think that's the case. I'm not saying that no kid can have drama. Believe me, they can. But for some kids, it is drama based on a trauma experience for sure.
I agree with that.
So do we have any questions that we might want to talk about?
Yes, we do. So, first
Okay.
question is going to be, what are the signs of trauma in youth?
So I think that one of the signs is a change, a 180. So for instance, if I've been happy and go lucky and suddenly I'm not, right? And it doesn't last just a day, it's lasting over time. And I don't mean like weeks and months, but I mean like a couple of days, you see that same behavior. Or maybe I was proud of myself and the work I was doing, and suddenly I'm not. So if you see this 180 shift in a child, I think that that bears having a conversation with them about it. And like I said, not the switch that takes place for an hour, right? I mean, they something upset them and they're dealing with it. But if it's more than that, I think that you'll see that maybe they've been pretty passive and they suddenly become aggressive, or maybe they've been aggressive and they suddenly withdraw, right? So the behaviors, this 180 switch, right? That just goes from here to here. And it seemingly happens because it happens, not because of a trigger, if that makes sense. There's not an event that occurs that you could say, okay, that's why this happened. That's why they withdrew. That's why they were reacting. There's no apparent reason. They just have put on that switch. And the other thing that I think can happen is so in your demeanor, some kids are very focused and they can't stay focused, right? They can't concentrate. They can't follow through. They can't do all those things they normally do. And again, that's that 180 shift. But I think that's one of the most telltale signs is this absolute, and it's almost like going, whoa, who are you? Right? It's like, you're not anybody I recognize because that switch has flipped. So I would say that's one of the ways that I would be looking for that. How about you?
Uh, I would say this, I would agree with that. It's just the reactive, like the switch, like the switch of that
Mhm,
they do, like the 180 switch, like that's definitely like a big sign of trauma.
mhm,
Also another way is like you see them shutting down. Like I think
mhm.
that's that'd be like another sign. It's just all these signs are just they're always gonna be different for every child. So it's just hard.
Right,
Sometimes, it's just hard. You just have to be very attentive and you have to like try to understand that, like what's their sign of trauma, like what's like
right.
how they're gonna react towards it.
Mhm.
Uh,
And that's why it's so important that we have relationships with kids, that we know
oh
them,
yeah.
right? We know who they are. This is in nobody has a single line, no normal, but here's how this kid normally is. This is what I expect from this kid. And when it pings outside of that, then you need to start paying attention to it. And I think that's what
Right.
you're saying as well, right? It's when
Yes.
this is the channel, right? But it's no longer in the channel. It's
Yes.
completely different. Yeah, I agree. So what else do we have?
Definitely. All right. Our next question is, how can I create a safe space for youth in experiencing trauma?
So one of the things that I think is comforting is routine, right? We're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, so that you know what to expect. And I don't know, but I have this philosophy. If and I have it for myself, but for a child, it would be the same thing. If I'm at work or if a child's at school and there is normalcy, there's no chaos there, then I can handle chaos at home. Or if it's flipped, that there's chaos when I go to school, right? But at home is at peace, I could handle that. It's when there is chaos on both ends. And with trauma, I think that's what happens. There's chaos in every space that you're living in. And there's no place for you to go to escape it, right? It's there. It's palpable. So I think that having routine and familiarity and knowing what's coming next and what's expected and that somebody will praise you and I think is really helpful for kids that are experiencing trauma. And then, and I think that sometimes this is hard. Um, it is hard to not judge. Right. Okay. Well, this kid is just acting out. This kid is just, right, whatever that is. And that's true if we're talking about our significant others or other people that we interact with, right? That there is a time when we just go, "Ah, I can't believe they're doing that, right? So if you can create a space that is non-judgmental, that we're going to accept you, warts and all, right? We're not trying, you don't have to be perfect to be here. We understand. None of us are perfect. So creating that space where kids can take a breath and not be ridiculed for needing the time and space, I think is really, really important. So those would be two things that I would suggest for creating that space: routine, and then a willingness to not make behavior be bad. It just might not be the greatest choice to get the best outcome for yourself. I think that's important.
Definitely, I agree with you on that. That's really good.
Would you add
Next,
anything to that from your experience?
I'm thinking, I'm just thinking about it. Like, I don't, I think you nailed that one.
Okay, because I just think it's hard, right? And I don't
Yeah.
think it's easy to be a kid. We were talking last night actually at dinner, and for my oldest grandson, they had all these celebrations that were school, right? They had homecoming, they had aloha dance, which meant welcome back to school. They had
Mhm.
homecoming dance. They had winter formal. They had Sadie Hawkins Day. They had spring break, and they had prom, right? They had all of these activities that brought them together. Well, that's not happening anymore. Now they're not doing the aloha dance. They will do formal in the winter and prom in the spring. I just think that kids need more than that, right? And yet
I
what the
agree.
school is trying to do is not put themselves in a position where there's violent acts occurring on the campus. So it's not that I don't understand that, but I think that if we're always trying to keep somebody from having a bad day, pretty soon we'll do nothing.
Oh,
Because if there's 100 kids, some of them will find prom as a bad day. Some of them will find the dance as a bad thing. Others will find it as lifeblood itself, right? And I think we have to remember that we cannot constantly not just adjust, but eliminate so that kids don't have the experiences that they need. And I think that sometimes with trauma, we tend to do that. We want to limit them. And we're doing it out of right reasons. We don't want them to receive more trauma. And yet, life is full of trauma. And so, how do I help you learn to cope with it rather than just eliminate it? Because you'll never eliminate it altogether. So I think that was a bird walk. But anyway, uh,
That was
what
nice.
you were saying reminded me of that. So do we have another
Yeah.
question?
Yes, we do. Our next question is, how can I teach youth to express their feelings in a healthy ways?
One of the most healthy ways I think that people can express themselves is through I messages. What tends to happen is we use you messages. You made me mad. You hurt my feelings. You traumatized me. You. And the fact of the matter is, none of us, not an adult or a child, can control what somebody else does. I can't control what you do, right? You have to control that. So if I allow you to continue speaking in you messages, you're always going to be talking about the other. The other, which you cannot control, you have no control over, is causing this irritation, right? And so if I teach you to do I messages, then I get you to focus on you. What's going on inside you? Not what they're doing, but what's going on inside of you. And so an iMessage is really it's a protocol, right? And the first part of it says, when I notice, when I see, when I think, when I something, you fill in the verb. When I think you're avoiding me, okay? When I think that, I'm not saying you are avoiding me, but when I think you're avoiding me, and then so it's when I notice, right? When I notice you ignoring me, I feel is the second piece. So and you acknowledge what it is that you saw, and then I feel. I feel angry. I feel upset. I feel left out. What do you feel? I feel this way. It's not has nothing to do with you. I have interpreted this behavior as meaning this, and this is how I feel. And so I think it goes. Um, when I notice, I feel, then I think you don't like me anymore. I think you wish I'd go away. I think you think that you shouldn't be my friend. Whatever it is. So I notice this, I feel this, and then I bring those feelings up into my head, and I'm now going to tell you what I think when all that happens, right? And then I'm going to tell you how I act. So I act like I don't recognize you. I act like I don't have to be around you. I act in a certain way. So those are the first four parts of clean advocacy, of learning how to do iMessages. The fifth part is what's so critically important. So now I've told you about me. This is me. This is what I notice, how I feel, how I think, and how I feel like and assumptions I'm making. Then I'm going to ask you, can we talk about it so I can understand what's going on inside of you? And then I'm going to be the listener while you say, when I think, right, and give and feed that back to me so that we can start to have a dialogue that says, that was never my intention. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I didn't mean to slight you. I didn't even realize you were there because I was doing, right? And so we start to listen and understand folks in a much clearer and much better way. So for me, teaching kids to go through that protocol is really important. You can use that just as a simple conversation and give them little cue cards so they know, follow the protocol. Another thing you can do is put that it's what's called a peace table. And so A gets to say what A gets to say, then B gets to respond, then A gets to respond, then B gets to respond, and then you're done, if that makes sense. And so that's one way. Another way you can do it is by a peace walk, where I invited you, so I'm going to tell you about my stuff in iMessages. You're going to tell me about your stuff in iMessages, and then we're going to collaborate to find a solution. So I hope all that kind of makes sense. But it's that's healthy. And the last thing I'd say about that is this, and you know, Robert, we've been working on developing vocabulary for people, right?
Yes.
Because people are either mad or happy. No, there's a whole range of emotions in between, and kids don't have the words to talk about it, to identify truly what they're feeling. Are you feeling disappointed? Are you frustrated? Are you angry? Are you
Mm,
upset? Right? Are you feeling it's unfair? What's going on inside of you? And I think that's really important too. And I like the kits we've been putting together on that.
definitely. That's I was just when you were talking, I was just thinking about the continuums,
Yeah,
like emotional continuums, and I think that like it shows a lot of it shows like a lot of ways to show an expression.
yeah.
I know there's one of them we have the not I don't think the emotion wheel. I think it's an emotional wheel that we have on there. Which is showing
Mhm.
like all the emotions. So I think that's really helpful, even for
It,
adults.
it is, I think,
Yeah.
and the extremes, whether it's at the bad end or the good end, right? It doesn't matter. If I'm extremely happy, and I can't get anything else done because I'm so excited and that's all I can talk about. And wow, isn't that terrific? And blah, blah, blah. That's really not very helpful, right? But if I'm totally indifferent, which would be the opposite of that, and I'm going, whatever, whatever, that's not very helpful either. Living on those poles is not a good place to be. What we need is to help kids try and get to the center. But I think we also have to acknowledge that what they feel is what they feel. Right? A lot of times it was there's this old story. Have you ever been in a room where a kitchen where they're cooking cabbage?
Yes.
It stinks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, cabbage stinks. It just does. And I don't dislike cabbage, but I do not like the smell of it when it's cooking, right? And so there's a
Hmm.
story of a little girl that goes with her mom to visit her grandma, and and they when they get there, grandma's cooking cabbage. And the little girl says, "What are you cooking? It stinks." And the mom says, "You shouldn't say that. You'll make grandma feel bad." Well, but the fact of the matter is, cooked cabbage stinks. So the little girl was just expressing that. She wasn't trying to hurt anybody's feelings. And quite frankly, grandma's feelings may not have been hurt at any rate because she knows it stinks too, right? So I
Yes.
think sometimes we tell kids, your observation, your feeling, what you're thinking isn't right. And so
Hmm.
often it is right. It's totally right. And I think we have to value that. I do want to share this. Have I told you the story of the word fund, Fund?
No.
This just happened recently. So my grandson is in second grade. He's 7. And he was given a list of words to memorize. So I was going over them with him, right? And I'm looking at them, and some of them are just normal words, right? That any kid would know and use. But there are words on this list that no kid would be, in my opinion, at 7 would be using. And one of them was the word fund. And I said to him, I said, "You can read this word, but you know what it means?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what does it mean?" He said, "It means you had fun yesterday." So he was putting the ed on it, right? So it was like in the past. And I thought,
uh,
that's totally logical for kids. And I think we have to realize that a lot of times when you stop and listen to them, no, it doesn't make grown-up sense, but makes total sense for the child, right? And so when they're
mhm.
expressing themselves about how they're feeling, you may be thinking, why would you feel that way? It's no big deal. Or you might be thinking, why aren't you upset? Right? But if we don't
Yeah.
give them the vocabulary to talk about that, and we don't realize that for some kids, fun is going to mean having a good time yesterday instead of money, that's a problem. So I think we have to give them work on language and really describe what's going on in them. And how
Mm,
intense is it? And how mild is it?
I
So I don't know
agree.
if you have thoughts, but
That's a funny story.
it is. And it was all I could do to not just bust up laughing, right? Because it
Yeah.
made such total sense for
Yes, it
seven,
does.
right? And for a grown up, it was
Yeah.
like, what? But anyway, and I think we have to realize that with kids. Sometimes their choice of words is not terribly accurate, right?
Yeah. Oh
They
no.
they they may just be saying what they think based on the knowledge they have.
Oh yeah, I agree on that.
Yep.
So moving forward, the next question is, what role does active listening play in supporting traumatized youth?
So I think the importance of active listening is that you're listening to understand. So they say that in Western culture, which is where we live, communication is often debate. I'm right, you're wrong. Be quiet and sit down and do what I tell you. Okay, that's not very effective if a kid's been traumatized. I already know I don't want to hear it, right? And that's not the case. That's not what we want. The second thing that we tend to do as Americans is discuss. And when we discuss, I'm letting you say your piece and then I'm going to tell you why I'm right and you're wrong and you ought to do what I say. Right? I mean it's just a nicer version. And what we want to do with active listening isn't either of those. It's not about what you are thinking, how you interpret it. It's listening so that you know how they interpret it. And you're not only listening to their words, you're watching their body language, their facial expressions, uh, all of that, so that you can try and make meaning out of what they're telling you. And then in active listening, after you've tried that, you're not trying to fix them, you're not trying to lead them in a different direction, you're just listening. It's really important to say to them, so this is what I think you're telling me. Am I right? And if I'm not right, fix it. Tell me where I need to fix my thinking. Because when I listen to you that way, I tell you that you can trust me, that you can't say anything that's going to make me not like you, that's going to make me want you to go away. I'm listening, truly listening actively to what you have to say. And then always in active listening, you check in to be sure you're right. So this is what I think. Is that correct or not? And if it's not correct, let them re-explain it to you because that's okay. It's about them and what they're thinking and they're feeling.
I agree on that. Mm. So I just want to add on to that. So I was just thinking about, like when you active listen, you build safety and trust, like trust towards like the kids, like they just show them that like their voice does
Mhm.
matter. So it's
Yeah. And isn't that a
definitely.
huge gift to give a child that your voice matters,
Oh yeah,
right? What you
definitely.
have to say, your perception matters to me. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean I'm going to lecture you to try and get you to see it my way. I'm just going to hold your truth because that is your truth,
Yeah,
even if I don't see it that way. And that's okay. Maybe it's a fun situation, right? Where you see it one way and I see it completely differently. So yeah,
yeah,
I think that's what I would say about that.
I agree on that. So move forward. The next question is, how can I use art or creative expression to youth processes trauma to help youth process trauma?
So we have two hemispheres in our brain. A left hemisphere, which is very logical, step by step, right? And so if I'm step by stepping you on this traumatic feeling, I'm not feeling it myself at this point. I'm just reiterating it. Whereas when you
Mm,
use your right brain, it allows you to feel it. And a lot of times people refuse to use their bright brain if it's been traumatized before. It's like, I'm saying nothing, I'm not going to do anything, because if I can do that, it'll just go away. I don't have to deal with it, right? But the fact of the matter is, uh, we need to help them to learn how to process what's going on inside of them, and to be able to realize that that they can express it. And art is such a beautiful way to express it. Maybe what you're doing is just using color and not trying to make a picture. Maybe you're drawing a picture, even if it's in stick figures, of you and somebody else. And a lot of times when they do that, they'll be very tiny and the other person is looming, right? Because it's traumatizing. Um, but art allows you to feel what you're processing in your head in words. And that's why sometimes people can't write anything. I mean, right? They can't draw. They get hung up on it because they don't know how to express it. Um, there's a really cool children's book called The Dot. Have you ever read The Dot?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, so The Dot is
Yeah.
about a little girl named Vashti who has to go to art class. And she says, I don't know how to draw. I'm not any good at it. I don't want to put anything on the paper. And so the teacher comes by and looks at Vashti's blank paper. And she says, Oh, Vashti, how wonderful. You've made a polar bear in a snowstorm, which, if you think about it, you wouldn't be able to see. And then Vashti goes ahead and puts a dot on the paper, just a dot. And the teacher comes by and says, Oh, Vashti, that's wonderful. Will you sign your name so that I can remember that this is from you? So she signs her name, the teacher frames it, and Vashti then realizes that she can draw things around the dot. She can draw dot to dot. She can she can make each dot represent something special, right? She has the opportunity. She can make a dot and then decorate all around the dot so that it's only the dot. But anyway, she gets it, right? That she can be creative and it doesn't have to look a certain way. Well, as the book moves forward, and it's a quick read, but as the book moves forward, a new kid comes into play, right? And says, I can't draw, I don't know what. And so Vashti says, make a dot, sign your name, right? Because what you're thinking, what you're feeling at this moment, we might not be able to capture in words, but you can capture it in art, in that feeling. And so I think that that's why art's so important. And whether that art is music or drama or dance, I think that that all works, right? Because you're making it your own. And you've
Yeah.
worked through it enough that you can either suggest a solution or you can just be sure that you're not hindering the way of anybody else.
I
So that's
agree.
what I'd say about that.
Definitely. And all those are just forms of like a way to communicate your feelings, non-verbally. So it's just
Exactly.
mhm.
Exactly. And you don't have to rant and rave and carouse, right? You can have all those feelings, but you can have them contained if that's what you
There you
desire. Because you can always let them loose, right? You can always let those feelings loose. But it's important if you can capture it yourself, because maybe by the time you could let it loose, you don't want to anymore, right? You're
go.
just going to go, okay, and move on, which would be
Exactly.
good.
I agree on that. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So what's
So
next?
our next question is, how can I involve families in supporting youth experiencing trauma?
So, first of all, I think that families are aware that something's not right, that there's something, they may not know what it is, but when a kid does a 180 and they're still living in your house, it's pretty hard to not notice it, right? And so they may not know what to do about it or anything like that, but they should recognize it. And then I think that once they can acknowledge that that happens, then I would encourage them to come to a parent night, uh, to a spaghetti dinner, to something that would be appealing to them so that we can talk about that in small groups, right? So that we can talk about how do we support these young people who are experiencing trauma? What can we do right now today and how will we know it was successful? Right? So one of the things you can always do is if you've done it all along and had kids rate 1 through 5, right? And you've done it over and over so that they're not, this isn't the only thing you're doing it on. You can have them rate your question. How well do you think we're listening to others in our classroom? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with 1 meaning not at all, and 5 being, I wish we had the news station here because what we're doing is so amazing. So it's that, and I think that that can help kids get it out, involve them, and also let families know in a non-threatening way.
I agree with that. And I would say, also if possible, you can offer like family workshops on communication and trauma awareness.
Yeah, and if a kid is
Or
experiencing it with you, they're probably experiencing it at home too,
yeah,
right? It's not that it's not happening there as well. So yeah, I think that makes a good point.
yes.
Okay, where are we
Moving
going
forward,
next?
the next question is, what are effective strategies for building trust with traumatized youth?
Stephen Covey, not the one who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but his son, wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. And in that book, he names 13 behaviors that we should work on if we're going to try and build trust among people. And I'm not certainly going to list all 13 of them, but one of them is about talking straight. So if a child has demonstrated trauma and you try and minimize that, oh, it's okay, it's no big deal, you can get over it, it's nothing bad happened, here you are, safe and sound, blah, blah, blah. And you minimize that feeling, how can they trust you? Because they know what they felt. So if a child has felt being isolated or kicked out of the group or whatever, you need to acknowledge that. So I think that acknowledgement is really, really important to build trust. Acknowledging that what they're feeling is real to them, whether or not it's real to you. Another part, I think, of building trust is this consistency. I'm going to be here. 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 I'm going to be here every time you might need me, not just when it's convenient for me, right? And I think that helps to build trust. And I think then it's also helpful in building trust to show loyalty, right? So if a child is having an experience, right, you're bad mouthing their parent isn't helpful because now they're who made them up isn't okay, and we don't want to do that. So I think that sometimes we lump things together, and then that doesn't feel good, right? So there are 13
Mm.
trust behaviors that he talks about, and I would encourage you to take a look at them. You can go online and find the 13 of them if you don't want to read the whole book, but it is the whole point of the book is about how do you build trust? How do you, and not only build it, but maintain it as built, right? What do you need to do? And how do you make that interaction happen? And the importance of being consistent, the importance of being reliable, the importance of being there for them, the importance of being transparent. All of that becomes very clear for
Definitely,
you and them. Yeah.
definitely. And I would just to add on, I would just say, like show like genuine care, like through small gestures, like remembering details about their lives, just so like
Mhm.
so that just so they know that you do care for them.
Yep. And
And
details about their life. That's why you talk to them every day so that they tell you stuff, right? So
yeah.
that that can happen. Yeah, absolutely. Agree 100%. So
Mhm.
anything else that we want to talk about today?
Yes. So our next question is, how can I teach youth self-regulation techniques?
Well, you can take a lesson from the calm down boy, right? You're not going to go from here's what you need to do, and they're going to flip the switch and be able to do that, right? It's a gradual release, right? But also, I think it's really important to co-create with them because for some kids, taking 5 deep breaths is perfect, right? Okay, right? And for others, that's not helpful at all, right? Because they're so busy shallow breathing that they don't realize that they haven't taken a deep breath. So I think that in self regulation, we want to help kids recognize what they're feeling, be able to identify it, and then to realize they have a choice. So let's say, Robert, that you and I are in the same room and you made me angry, and I'm
Mhm.
upset with you, and I want to hit you. If I hit you, everything's off the table. Would you agree with that? There's no turning back. That's like knocking the first domino down and the end one falls, and I'm going to go home. You might be hurt, right? It's not working. So I think that that part of what we want to do is to help kids in self-regulation realize that you could start to tip the dominoes, but you could yank one out so that they all didn't fall, right? It's
Mhm.
possible to go, whoa, I forgot that. I was going to remember to count to 10 and then reverse that. And then you could apologize sincerely. I'm truly sorry. I forgot I was going to count to 10 and I didn't do that, right? So I think that self-regulation is not easy. When was the last time you ate a cookie that you knew you shouldn't, right? For me, that would be this morning because I baked cookies, right? And they smelled really good, and I ate a fresh one. Now I only ate
Oh,
one, and
nice.
so I can go, well, you know what? I only ate one, and that was really good, and blah, 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is, I ate one, and that probably wasn't the best of self regulations. So I think we have to realize that we all don't self regulate, and all of
Oh
us
yeah,
don't do it well. So we need to give each other grace and ourselves grace when we do that. And I think that that's also a conversation you can have when a child's observing all these horrible things. Okay, but let's talk about what's good from this. Well, what's good is this and this, instead of just focusing on the negative. So I think
I
that
did
that's one of the things I would do to teach self-regulation.
definitely. I like those. Those are really good techniques. I like
Yeah.
those.
And they should work, hopefully. And if not, yikes.
Definitely. I know that we would do this a lot in a standard program. In a standard program, we encourage the kids like move like to have like some type of movement breaks, like stretching or sensory items, like little fidgets that we used to have for them.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so those are some techniques that we used to use. Oh,
And
they still
that's
use
helpful,
actually.
isn't it?
Yes.
I think that I totally get that, right?
Mhm.
That it's I think that's important, right?
Oh
That
yeah.
we understand that. It's everything's a process, right? Nothing
Yes.
is instant. And I think we need to learn that, right? It's just not
Yes.
all instantaneous. And and we just have to, that's part of the deal, right? Self-regulation is part of the deal.
Oh yeah.
And it's the
Oh,
most difficult because every day I don't self-regulate in some arena of my life. I didn't self-regulate going to bed early enough. I didn't self-regulate not getting up too early. I didn't self-regulate not eating a cookie for breakfast. I didn't self-regulate, right? I just don't do
oh
that.
yeah.
And very few people can say they do that 100% of the time. It just isn't the reality. And so let's
Definitely.
cut them some slack, right? And say, okay, what could you do next time? Instead of eating 5 bags of M&Ms, right? What could you do? What could you do? So if I wanted to hit you, that this was the point I was going to make. So if I wanted to hit you because you hurt my feelings, if I go in and I look at all the other things I could do, I could walk away. I could say, hey, I don't like it when you do that. I could tell my friend. I could tell the teacher. I could, right? There's all these things I could do. And I can choose those. And if I still want to hit you after I've chosen all those others, then I still can, right? It doesn't mean that I have to give up on the I really want to hit you. It just means that let's look at all the other possibilities that you could do and then ask yourself, do you still really want to hit him? Do you still really want to do that? Or have you worked through that? And chances are you will have worked through it, right?
Mhm.
Because I just
That's
think
right.
that that's the way it works. So if I want to shout at you, I can. But I could do 27 other things. And then if I still wasn't satisfied, I could shout at you. And chances are I won't be shouting, right? I just think that's all part of it.
Yes, I agree on
Teaching
that.
that self-regulation.
100%. So moving forward, the next question is, what role does mindfulness play in addressing trauma?
So mindfulness for me is about trying to stay in the moment. Okay. A lot of times, and I'm not trying to say that trauma isn't important. And I think there's a time and a place to talk about trauma and to help a child through that and work through all of that. But there's also a time for that to have a chance to mellow, to have a chance for them to sort through insights, through questions that are being asked. And so that for me in mindfulness is about being in the moment, right here, right now, and deciding, okay, how can I make this the best moment I've ever had? Rather than dwelling on a moment you can't change because it's in the past. You can't fix that. But if you can be mindful and stay in the moment, maybe you'll think of a way to not get into the same fix again. Which is what you want, right? Let's don't repeatedly make the same mistake. Not that we don't do that because we're creatures of habit, but if I can have you stop and breathe and focus on the outcome that you want and to be in the moment, I think you have a better chance of getting to the reality of the trauma so that they can get rid of it so that it can be done for them and not just something that's living in the back of them that's not on the front all the time, that just rears its head once in a while. So I don't know, do you practice mindfulness, meditation, where you go and think and all that?
Actually, yes, I do. I used to be a time when I used to do it for like 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it was really helpful. Definitely
Yeah,
like helps helps like my brain, to like regulate emotions and reduce anxiety mainly for
absolutely.
me.
No, absolutely. And I think that that's true. And that mindfulness, it just stops things so that everything can catch up, right? So that you're not reacting, you're responding. And I think that's the most important thing that we can help kids understand. We're not reacting. It's not like, like if you kick a ball, the ball flies because you kicked it. And that's what happened. With mindfulness, you just would consider the ball and it probably wouldn't move at all because nobody's kicking it, right?
Right.
It's there.
Mm.
And I'm going to just be aware that it's there, but it doesn't mean I have to act on it. Although I
Yeah.
think last night in the football game that ended up in a tie, somebody would have maybe
Oh,
liked to have gotten to play the same thing over. in the
Oh yeah.
NFL. I heard this morning that they did overtime and it still ended in a tie. I think that
That
was
was a
the
game.
Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers.
Okay. Yeah.
And they ended up in a tie,
That's
and it's like not so fun for sure. But anyway, we're not looking
um,
to help kids with a tie. Mindfulness helps you get past the tie, right?
there you go.
That you can't get through. It gives you a way around it. It gives you a chance to consider. It gives you all that, and then plot how you will go, which will be different. So
That's
I
right.
think I do mindfulness often, and I think it's really important to just take a breath and
Definitely.
right here, right now.
That's right. And we did practice a lot of mindfulness also in our in the extended learning program.
Hmm.
The kids, we used to take like I want to say 5 minutes of it, of mindfulness. And I know I'm not sure. I think we did there's some of those activities were provided by you.
Hmm.
So I yeah, so I just recall doing those too, and that was really helpful.
And I think so too. And when kids have to transition, and so we only do hundreds of them every day. But when a kid has to transition, you've got to adjust to a new circumstance, right? And mindfulness can help you get from point A to point B. And I think that that's true with trauma as well. I can't erase the trauma that you felt. I can't. I'd love to be able to just go in and wipe it out, right? So that it would be obliterated from your mind. But I can't do that. I can't change that. But I can help you say, okay, that was then. This is now. These are things I can do to protect myself from having that happen again, right? I mean, I think that we can teach kids those kinds of things. And I think that that's the value of a mindfulness activity because you take a breath long enough to consider your options rather than just react.
Like yes, 100%. So moving forward, the next question is, how can I teach youth about resilience?
Okay, I think this is probably our last question that we'll have, but resilience is a habit of mind. Resilience says, I got knocked down, I'm going to get up and I'm going to continue, right? I'm going to keep doing this until I get it as close to right or I feel good about it as possible. And I think that when we enable children, when we go, oh, I'm you're not very good at cutting, so I'm going to cut for you. You're not very good at solving your problems, so I'm going to tell you what you ought to do. You're not very good at whatever that is, right? And we take over for them. We are enabling them. We are not helping them to become champions for themselves. We're not helping them to build the agency they need in order to deal with all of the things that are going to come their way, some of which are traumatic, right? Some of which are great, some of which are awful, and some of which are really, really awful, right? And some of which are really, really good. So I think that resilience helps you to understand that the word fail, FAIL, is first attempt in learning. And you're going to pick yourself up, and it doesn't mean you have to rush into it again, but you're going to pick yourself up. You're going to consider what went wrong. You're going to think about, is there anything that I could have done differently? Or is it truly that no, I just need to extricate myself from the situation because I did everything in the best possible way and the situation was just awful and I need to get out of that. So I think that that is what resilience is. It's you're never done until you quit. And once you quit, then you're done. And I don't think if we teach kids resilience, they're going to they will learn to not quit. They will learn to negotiate. They will learn to go around. They will learn to jump over. They will learn whatever they need to do so they can move toward their goals if we empower them, which I think is important. So I don't know, do you have any
Definitely.
final words for this group?
Yes. So just to add on to that, like, I would just encourage the growth of mindset, like by reframing mistakes as learning opportunities. I think that's one way too. You can also
Mhm.
help youth identify their personal strength and support systems
Yep,
that helps them out with resilience.
yep.
Yeah,
And that
that's what
can
I
be a
got.
peer support system, or that can be familial, or it can be an adult, or right. A support system is one that helps you move forward. And I think sometimes for kids, it can, especially like middle school age, they need that with their
Yes.
peers. So you need to be sure that you're raising the level of the whole ocean, not just a water spout here and there.
There you go.
Yep.
I like that. So
Okay, anything else for the good of this group?
that's all I had.
Okay, well, that's all I
It's
have
okay.
too. I hope this was helpful. Know that trauma is a fact of life, and sometimes trauma I can consider something traumatic and you might not at all, and that's okay. Because if it's me that's feeling it, I'm the one who has to learn to deal with it. And you as an adult can be that safe space and sounding block for kids. So thank you for all of the work that you do with kids. We really appreciate it. And take good care and have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Yes. Bye.